Welcome to my first video. Here is what we are going to do. So this is a React.js application which is hosted on GitHub pages, as you can see in the URL. The cards which you see right here, they get the data from real-time Google Sheets. In fact, Google Sheets acts as a database. And on the top right hand side, you see this page gets auto refreshed every 30 seconds. And yes, it is configurable. So every 30 seconds, it goes to the Google Sheets and get the data and refreshes the page. This entire thing is free to use and deploy. The complete source code is available in the description. So let's get started. Let's take a quick architecture of this web app. The front end is done using React.js functional component. The back end is Google Sheets. And the front end talks to the back end using the HTML fetch API. We send a GET request, and then the Google Sheet, it will respond back with a JSON data. Now let's see the use case where this kind of application will be used. Whenever there is a waiting time and you are in a queue, frustration might be common. You want to know the real-time updates of when your turn will come. Typically, each customer will be given a unique token, and based on the priority, they will be served. While you're waiting, for example, in a DMV, the first image, you don't know when is your turn, but you have your token number. Or let's say you're at a restaurant and you're waiting to pick up your favorite food. You will have a token number. Or let's say you're in a doctor's office and you get your current customer token, but you don't know how long you will be called inside. So by designing this kind of application, you can access it using your mobile phone, and the backend, the Google Sheets, if it is updated real time by one of their internal customer care person, you can see the real time updates, and that would avoid certain level of stress, and you know when your turn will be called. Let's take another example of the scenario which we just discussed. So right now you see this, we have two tokens which are being served, and the token number is 101 and 110. So let's enter a brand new token here in the backend. And let's say the token number is 200. So right now on the right hand side, you already see the token got refreshed. I'm about to enter some description. Let's say teenage driver license. All right. So now this browser, so we updated the backend. This is the database. So the front end gets automatically updated. You would see the description here. You see this? So now you know you are the third person in the queue, right? So let's say the first two people are done. So assuming some customer service person who works in this office, they will keep on updating this particular database in real time. Now you are the first person according to the database. So the front end, it will get updated right now. So you're the first person in the queue. So the complete source code for this application is available in the GitHub. I will also give the same link in the description. And the application is deployed to the GitHub pages using the GitHub Action CI/CD. That part is not covered here, but I will be doing that video soon. And the working application, the live application, is deployed in the GitHub pages. Again, the link I will provide in the description. So what can we learn from this project? The first thing is we will learn how to set up the Google Sheet, and we'll go to the AppScript section and we will write some code, and finally we will expose the data with an endpoint. Then we will see a brief overview of the React.js application, which is the front end. And respecting everybody's time, I will not be coding each and everything, which will be time consuming, error prone. I have to debug and all the stuff. So the source code is already available in GitHub. We will open the code in Visual Studio Code and I will quickly walk through what it is. And it is very simple, and we can see that overview in a moment right now. Then we will see how to consume the Google Sheet data from React.js through HTML fetch API. While the data is being fetched, we are going to display a loader image, which will be a separate component. And finally, when we get the result back, we have to display them in a card, the white section. So that will be another component. And finally, every 30 seconds, we keep on polling to get the latest data, and we create this separate component, and it uses the JavaScript set interval, which will be used in the use effect hook, and we will see how to nicely integrate both of them. And now we will see how we are going to break down the entire application into smaller components. So the first one, which is encircled in the red color, that is the parent component, which is where we fetch the data. Within that component, we have a header. So this is going to be one component. On the top right hand side, we are going to display this refresh message. That is going to be another component. And the brown rectangle is where we are going to display the cards. This is the data which is coming from the Google Sheet. This is going to be another component. And while the data is being fetched, we are going to display this loader. This is going to be another component. So let's see how to set up the Google Sheets. So like I said, this acts as a database. So we go to the Google Sheets, and then I named my sheet as announcements. So there are 5 columns, and there are some data. So you can create the columns or the rows however you want. For my application, I need this kind of columns. That's why I created it. And now once your data is ready, what we need to do is go to tools, go to extensions and click on AppScripts. This will open a new browser tab. And the entire source code of this is available in my GitHub. This is going to be a very simple function. So do get, when you send a GET request, this is the entry point of the application. So optionally, you can send a date. I want the data for this particular date. So, but what if I want all the data? This is our use case scenario. So in that case, we will call this method get spreadsheet data. So I will not go in detail like what it is doing, but the code is pretty much readable. So it will get the active sheet, it will get all the selected date range, and it will get the values. And this is the final JSON result array. And then I don't want to get the headers. And then I loop through each and every row. And for the result announcement array, I push the rows. And finally, this will be returned back through the API, which we are going to expose in a moment. Then your code is ready, your data is ready, and next we have to deploy this. So on the top right hand side, you see this deploy. Click on new deployment. So the type will be always web app. You can click here and select this. You can give a description. Generally, I give versions like V1 or V2 or V3 every time I make code changes. And this is going to be my email. And this is very important. Everybody should have access to it. Otherwise, it will not work. It is a free end API. And then I have done several deployments before recording this video. So you can see that if you click on manage deployments, I have created these many versions. So this is the active version and this is the endpoint. This is where we are going to consume the data from the front end. And Google Sheets, this particular AppScript is really powerful. You can run it natively in the browser window and you will see all the functions here. And you can even debug. You can put a breakpoint and debug anywhere you want. And you get a nice execution log as well. If you want to do something like logger.log, you're going to see all the results here. And you can add external libraries, you can add external services, you can do a lot of stuff. In fact, Google AppScript provides Google App Sheet data, the front end, to do these things. This is really powerful. Again, this is not a tutorial about the Google Sheets, but this is how we write the data. We put our data and we set this up to get our data back from the sheets. So now let's take a look at the front end. So this is my React.js application. I'm using VS Code. So we have one HTML page, index.html, the standard application which we created using create npx command. Now let's go to the index.js method. So this is the entry point, fetch data. This is the first component. Let's go to that one. And this is a very simple component which will get the data. So if you look at this method, fetch data. So what we are doing here is we have some state variables, right? I will explain each and everything in a moment. So when the page is loaded, what I want to do is I will call a JavaScript method set interval. What I'll say is if your current count is 30 seconds, it means when the page is loaded, it is in a descending order. The counter goes like 30, 29, 28 all the way up to 1. So when the page is loaded, it is 30. So at that time I say, okay, go and get the data from Google Sheets. So that function is defined here. And then this is a async function. And in the previous step I showed you how to get the endpoint, so that we are going to hard code it here. And then we are going to use the fetch API. We give this URL, and once you get the response, we are going to convert it to a JSON format. And then once you get the response, we want to store it in the memory, right? So that is why we are using the first state variable, this one. So the records, it is going to be an array, and this is going to be the method which will set the values inside the array. So you see this set records, we are going to send the data back, and that will be set in this variable. And then so when we call the fetch API here, we need to show the image. So I'm saying, okay, set is data loading to true. The moment this is set to true, the image will be displayed. And then I will say the timer, which you saw on the top right hand side, I don't want to show the timer when the data is loading. So I'm not going to show, you just set it to false. Once this fetch API is completed, we are going to reset the counter to 30. It means you have the data now, you want to reset the counter. So again, in the next 30 seconds, we want to load the data. And then we want to show the timer. So this is what the data from Google Sheet does. And then every time, for every second, you see this, the second parameter, like it is 1000 millisecond, which is 1 second. So for every second, I'm going to set the counter down to 1. So 30, 29, 28, it goes on like that. So the moment it becomes 0, it means I have to get the data again from Google Sheets. So when it is 30, I want to get the data. When it is 0, I want to get the data. So this is what the entire logic is. So if you notice, this entire logic is within the use effect hook. So whenever the component data or the state changes, we want to refresh the DOM. We want to refresh the UI. So this entire code should be put in the use effect hook. And if you look at the second, the count array, we want to reset it every time the component is updated. That is the only variable we want to do it. And finally, this is some very important cleanup, otherwise it will cause the memory leak. We want to say, okay, we are creating a timer interval, and every time this component is unmounted, we want to clear that interval. That will be disposed from the memory. So in the return of this function, we are checking this boolean variable. If the timer is true, then we want to display the timer, and this is the syntax. And this is the props, the property. So let's go to the timer component. So this will accept a variable. What is the current time? It can be 30, 28, whatever, right? This is how we pass the property value. And this is located on the top right hand side. This is the CSS for that. And then this will be called from the fetch data, and we are going to pass the counter value. And the header, I showed you the top link. Irrespective of the timer or anything, the header will be always there. That's why you see it in the next line. And whenever we are loading the data, remember this will be set to true. In this line, set data is loading to true. Only when this is true, we want to show the loader image, right? Let's go to the loader image. It is a simple component wherein I have an image, and I'm going to display it in the center of the page. Then if the loading is done, then don't display the loader, display the result. This is the last component, card, right? Let's go to the card. So this accepts an array, announcements. It can be 1 row, it can be 100 rows, right? So in the return part, I'm saying the array.map method. So I'm saying for each announcement, you just create a div. I have some style attributes for all the code here. You can take a look at this in the app.css. So this is how I created all the styles for them. So for each item in the array, this section will be displayed. So we almost came to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. Thank you.